In this video, we'll get a brief introduction to Google Colab and Jupyter Notebook. Google Colaboratory, or more commonly referred to as Google Colab, or just Colab, is a free cloud-based Jupyter Notebook environment from Google. It allows you to write and execute Python code in a browser, and it's especially suited for machine learning, data analysis, and education. And since you write your Python code in Jupyter Notebooks on Colab, we should first take a look at Jupyter. Jupyter Notebook is an open source web application which falls under the Project Jupyter umbrella that allows creation and execution of documents, or notebooks, containing code, equations, visualizations, and text such as Markdown. It's commonly used in Python development in data science, machine learning, and scientific research, but also supports R, Julia, and other languages. Arguably, the most common way people get started with Jupyter Notebook is to download and install it on your machine. However, with environments like Colab, you could develop in Jupyter in the cloud. For example, on the Jupyter site, if I click Try and then Jupyter Lab, I'm brought into a Jupyter Notebook. And if I click File, New, Notebook, a new Jupyter Notebook is created for me. Here I'll pick the Python kernel. In this first cell, I'm going to change the type from code to Markdown. And in Markdown, you can create a header using a single £. Then I'll hit enter in the cell. Use a double £sign for a subheader. Then shift enter to run the cell, and we see our heading. Now in a new cell, it defaults to code, so I could write some Python. Shift enter again, and we see the output of the cell. And when you're executing Python code, you'll see a number for the order of execution. So this was the first time I ran the first cell, so there's a 1. If I add code to this cell, and execute, we see there's now a 2. And we have the output from the execution. If I want to clear the contents of the output, I could right click and clear outputs of all cells. Or if I just wanted to clear the output for a single cell, I could click into it and then clear cell output. But here I'll go ahead and clear the output of all cells. Now if I go back into the first cell and shift enter again, we see this is code execution number 3. And in the second cell, it's 4. So in addition to clearing all outputs, you can also restart the kernel, and then when you execute, you'll be back to 1. Now, order of execution in cells is important. If I were to take these lines and cut them and put them into another cell and then run this, I get an error because X is not yet defined, because I ran the first cell and then the third cell, but not the second. So let me go back and run the second cell. Now if I run the third, because X and Y were defined above, I'm able to access them and get the cell output. Now, that's a pretty trivial example. So let's go ahead and delete these cells. I'll clear this one out and clear the output and restart the kernel and import NumPy. So I'll run this cell. Then I'll add a utility function for printing array details, run the cell, then add some code to generate some random numbers and put them in a list. So let's go ahead and run this. Next, I want to convert the list to a NumPy array. Here we see we started with the list. Now we have an NumPy array. It's a one-dimensional array, and its shape is 100 elements. Now I'll reshape the array, and we see we now have a 2-dimensional array with 50 elements in each dimension. Now let's reshape it again. It's still 2 dimensions with a shape of 4 with 25 elements each. Finally, we'll generate some new random numbers, display its details, which is 2 dimensions with a shape of 3 and 3. And finally, we'll convert the 2-dimensional array into a 1-dimensional array. So although this example is pretty trivial as well, and we were just working with NumPy, it gives us some exposure to working with Jupyter notebooks on the web. Now let's jump over and take a look at Colab. To get to Colab, enter colab.google.com and then sign in with your Google account. From the Open Notebook pop-up, I'll click the New Notebook button, and I have a new notebook. I'm going to go ahead and change the title to Demo, and above the default cell, I'll add a text cell and add some markdown. And as I'm typing, we'll see a preview over to the right. Now I'll add a subtitle and Shift Enter to run it. And we see our heading. Now in this code cell, we'll add some simple Python. And execute the cell. And we see our output. Now the next thing I want to do is execute some Unix commands. So in the code cell, I'll start with an exclamation and then enter pwd for print working directory, Shift Enter, and we see I'm in the content folder. And if I do an ls, Shift Enter, we see there's a sample data folder. If I click on the files icon, we see the sample data. I'm going to dismiss Gemini, and then I'm going to check the Python version, which is 3.12.11. And then I'm going to run a pip list to see which Python packages are installed. And we see by default, Colab has quite a few. But let me check and see if emoji's installed. And it's not. So I'll go ahead and install it. Then import it and add a simple print statement with a thumbs up emoji. I'll run the cell. And success. Now, if I go ahead and close out of Chrome and then go back in and go back to Colab, we see in my recents, I have the demo IPYMB file. Now, although I closed the browser and came back in, how is it that Colab knows that I have an IPYMB file? It's because if I hover over this icon, we can see that I'm able to view the demo IPYMB file in Google Drive. So let me go ahead and click that icon. It launches my Google Drive in a Colab Notebooks folder. So if I go to my Drive, here's the folder. If I click in it, there's my demo IPYMB file. So I go ahead and open it, and we see we're back exactly where I left off, even with the order of execution. So that concludes this brief intro into Google Colab and Jupyter Notebooks. If you found it interesting, feel free to give it a like. And if you'd like to be notified when I add more content to the channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.